I'm going to jump into the principle of what it takes to have good, healthy communication. The fundamental of healthy, open communication, the foundation of that is safety. If you don't have safety, you're not going to have open communication. Safety also includes knowing that you can be vulnerable and that you can trust that what you share is not going to come back around at you. That's all part of safety. This is fundamental to healthy communication. So whenever you approach wanting to communicate, you want to be thinking in your mind, do I feel safe? And does my partner feel safe? And the answer is no, then certainly that needs to be addressed first. The next level of setting up safety that we assume, but we don't often talk about, is to talk about what the goal or the purpose of our talking or why we want to talk. You think about what the bad wolf is about. It's about survival. It's about me and it's about my way. It's about winning. It's about being right. And in our bad wolf, survival is how we were made. We're always on the outlook for being safe. So if someone comes and approaches us, even our loving spouse, if they have a scowl on their face or a tone that triggers us, we're going to automatically put our defenses up. And the bad wolf is there. You can never have a real productive conversation with the bad wolf. The bad wolf doesn't care. The bad wolf only listens to know if they have been heard. And so that's why that goal is important to say out loud. I mean, think about the difference. I want to talk to you. So that triggers defensiveness. If you approach your spouse and say, hey, I love you, I'm having difficulty with the situation and would like to resolve that because I want to feel closer to you. So starting out that way, it alerts the wolf, hey, the bad wolf, you don't have to worry about anything. It's safe here. That's a goal I can get on board with, is to have greater harmony and peace and love. And so when we hear that, that creates safety and that invites the good wolf to be present, and then you can have good conversation. My generic couple is Jack and Jill. If I had Jack and Jill on a football field at the center line and I tied their hands together and I told one to go to one goalpost and one to the other, of course, if they go at the same time, usually Jack will win because he's bigger. But that's a tug of war. And that's what we do in our communication most often when we're in the bad wolf, is we're fighting and tugging and we're back and forth. You can always know if you're in an argument, if you're thinking, what am I going to say next? Or how do I need to defend myself? You are not on the same goal. That's part of the understanding the next level, and that's the process, which is the how you're going to talk about something. Having you on the football field as a team, you can agree together to run to one end, get across the goal line, and then together run across to the other end of the field. Even though it takes some effort to go back and forth, you can accomplish both goals pretty quickly together as a team. But if you're going at the same time, it's like your opponents, like you're on opposite teams, and it's going to be a fight all the way. And one person always feels like they lose when that happens. So you want to figure out the process, how you're going to do that. Now, do you walk together? Do you run together? Do you crawl together? You have to agree on how you're going to do that. Could be one of you gives the other a piggyback ride and you go to one goal and then you take turns going to the other one. One of the challenges, and I would say half the couples that come into my office, they have both agreed that they need some help together, but half the time it's just one spouse or the other that doesn't necessarily want to come in, because I find that they don't trust that they will have a voice and be heard. And so as I help create the safety, that makes them more open to be able to get involved in doing things. Often one spouse will feel like there's nothing wrong. And so that's part of the work in a session, to be able to help the other one understand that part of the work is to support and meet the needs of each other. All of these work together is the process, the goal, and safety. One of the principles is the more emotional, which is the content, the more emotional what you want to talk about, or the more common subject that's been argued about, the more you need to change the rules by changing the process. And by changing the process, that helps create safety. So it's kind of fun. A lot of couples that come in and they share that they do lots of arguing. We set up a process of changing the pattern. And it's important to change the pattern because as human beings, we get into habits and patterns, so much so, even in our communication with our spouse, that we forget what's really going on and we lose awareness of that. The principle is the more bizarre the intervention, the more effective it is. So with couples, as an example, extreme example, which are many couples that find themselves arguing, even yelling at each other, both knowing that they've gotten into the bad wolf and not knowing how to get out of that, is to come up with the agreement, and it takes the agreement and commitment to follow through, is that the first one that sits on the floor gets to talk first. And so that settles who gets to go first. That's a process. How also includes where and when we talk. Now, one thing my wife and I have done most of our almost 35 years of marriage is to take turns by checking what the date is. Some couples I get, they do rock, paper, scissors on who gets to go first. Some flip a coin, and you can figure out whatever works for you and your spouse. But for my wife and I, the way we decide is by checking the date. Today is the 8th, so that would be my wife's turn on everything. On an odd day, it's my turn for everything. My turn to be of service, my turn to be supporting, my turn to be responsible. So if we're watching a movie and we both want popcorn, if it's an even day, then I can enjoy watching her go get the popcorn. If we go to bed and the light's on and the light switches across the room, who gets to turn the light off? Well, what's the date? Today's the 8th, so my wife would have to get up and turn it off. If it's on an odd day, then I would be up and turning it off. So that just makes it easy. And we've had a habit of prayer together every day, and that's how we remember whose turn it is to pray, is what's the date. And we do that on a lot of things. It's a fun way. So there are lots of different ways to decide whose turn it is. Okay, so process. That's where most all the work that I do with couples in the office is teaching process, communication tools and skills. And this is part of the foundation to know that you're in or out of the good wolf, and to make sure that we create safety so that we can be vulnerable and trust that what we want to talk about and focus on will be heard and understood. With that safety, then the idea is when this is all in place here, then any content can be talked about. If it can't, then you have to go back to the other 3. And if you find yourself in a situation that starts out good, but then it goes south, you got to stop and go back and talk about safety, remind each other on what the goal is, and then agree again on the process. Who gets to go first? How long? Whether you talk for 2 minutes and then take turns 2 minutes or 5 minutes. One common process is to grab a pen and pretend that that's the microphone. And so the person's talking has the microphone. And when you're done talking and you want a response, then you pass the mic. And then they get to talk until they're done. and then they say it back. That is a process. As simple as this chart may appear, this is fundamental to good, healthy, open communication. And if you follow this and get creative, figure out different processes, then you can make it safe and you can accomplish any goal and talk about any content. That's the key there.